Dan Wheeler, top host at QVC for 29 years, had it all. A loving family, a beautiful house, and a stellar career interviewing celebrities like Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle, and Smokey Robinson. Yet his picture-perfect life was blown apart when his wife Beth was diagnosed with stage 4 endometrial cancer. In his book, Hurricane of Love, Dan Wheeler not only gives a loving tribute to his wife of 31 years, but also shares how anyone suffering loss can work through the grieving process, allowing God to use their pain for a higher purpose.
Well, Dan joins us now, and let's just talk about your book, Hurricane of Love.
Yes.
And that is your description of your wife, Beth.
Right. You know, Gordon, first of all, it's great to be here and to meet you. But the day my wife passed away, I have a niece, Tara, who's an excellent writer. And in a blog she wrote, "My Aunt Beth's love was like a hurricane. It hit everyone in its path." And I said, "Tara, that is the way to describe my wife. She was amazing." And I said, if I ever do write a book about her, that will be the title. So in the preface, I give her credit. But my wife had this singular ability that the moment you met her, you felt like you were home. You felt like you'd known her your entire life. Everyone said that about her. She was an amazing woman.
That is amazing. That is amazing. So take us back to the point where you get the phone call.
Yeah.
And that had to be devastating.
Right. She had surgery. We went to one of the biggest hospitals in Philadelphia, and the place is so big that you wait in a waiting room with a lot of people, and it's like O'Hare Airport. There are computer terminals that tell you when your patient is in surgery, who the surgeon is, when they're in recovery. Wow. And they don't come and talk to you. You get a phone call. So I go up and answer the phone, and the doctor said, "Dan, I got what I could, unfortunately." And when I heard the word unfortunately, it was like a bomb went off inside my brain. He said, "Unfortunately, it's a more aggressive form of cancer than we thought. It has spread throughout her abdomen. All we can do is chemo." And my daughter was with me, and she's a nurse. She grabbed the phone and started asking nursing questions, but then we went into a back room and just cried our eyes out and started calling every family member, and we wanted to be at the top of everyone's prayer chain. So I write in my book that our priorities were instantly turned upside down, but ultimately right side up. Being with her became priority number one, along with prayer. I feel like I was in a state of praying without ceasing for 3 years during that journey.
Did you ever, I guess, get into the question, why?
You know, I asked my wife that summer before she passed. We were out sitting in the back, just holding hands, and I said, "Beth, do you ever get mad at God?" And she said, "Why?" I said, "Because you have stage 4 cancer." She said, "I don't question him. I just have stage 4 cancer." But you know, Gordon, she was that way. She looked at the bright side of everything, and she truly learned to live life in the moment, and she taught me to do the same. We have a sitting room in our home where she'd like to have coffee. There's no TV in that room, just a couch, a lazy boy chair, and a hutch. Often I'd walk through and she'd say, "Dan, come sit, let's have coffee." And regrettably, I would many times say, "Beth, I've got a major celebrity on QVC and I've got too much work to do."
I'm too busy.
After that diagnosis, I always had coffee with her. I'd give anything to have a cup with her right now, but I know I will in heaven.
Well, let's get back to that. Why aren't you mad with God?
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people who don't get their prayers answered,
sure,
and you're going through that, what would you tell them?
Well, you know, I believed God was going to heal her right up till her last breath, even after she stopped treatment. But I remember David, when he got the news that his son had died, he got up and washed his face. And, you know, it was hard. I grieved. I have a chapter called Good Grief, which people are really responding to. I was drowning in my grief. I was dealing with so much guilt. Was I a good enough husband? Did I spend enough time with her? Why her? She was a better Christian, and I didn't understand. But I had a counselor say to me, a Christian counselor say, "Dan, you know, Beth's not in heaven with the Lord judging you. She's doing this. They're applauding you. They're cheering you on, saying, 'Finish your race.'" And that's my message to anyone who's going through grief. You're still here. You still have a life to live. God has a reason. And so, Gordon, I wanted to turn my greatest pain into my highest calling. Otherwise, why would God have had me go through all of that pain if there wasn't a better reason? And now, 3 years later, I can look back and say, in all things work together for good to them that love God. If I hadn't gone through this with Beth, I'm not sure I'd be where I am with the Lord. And He's called me into ministry now. And
well, that's the next verse, so that we can be conformed into His image.
Yes.
And He is acquainted with sorrow.
Yes.
And unless we have that, we're not conformed into his image.
Right.
But you went through it, and I think that's one of the keys. So often we want to put the happy face on, and it's not really there in the heart.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody that has lost someone? What's the process? Because it is a process.
Sure. The process is that year of first is going to be brutal. My wife died late October. We had Thanksgiving, the first holiday, and we were at my daughter's in-laws, and they left an empty place setting and a chair, and I'm not sure that was a good idea, but nice gesture. And then Christmas, I didn't even want to celebrate Christmas. I didn't want to put up a tree. I didn't want to hear a song. They all made me so sad. And then, well, our anniversary was right before Christmas, and then New Year's, and then her birthday was February 3rd, and I thought, this is brutal. The waves keep coming, the waves of grief. But then after that counselor said that to me in February, things started to turn around, and now 3 years later, we just celebrated her birthday, February 3rd. I took my whole family out to eat after church, and we talked about her, and we laughed, and we smiled. And so I actually say that those days for me now make me feel even closer to her than ever before. So we've learned how to celebrate those days, and I would say to someone who's grieving, I know you can't see it now because I've been there. I know you think there's no hope, no tomorrow, but God still has a reason for you to be here. And we've got to find our purpose and our calling.
All right, and you found that.
Yes.
You have found a purpose and a calling. Tell us about it.
You know, Gordon, after my wife's funeral, I called it her celebration of life service. My two best friends from Evangel College, way back in the 70s, came and stayed with me for the entire week after everyone else had left. They knew I needed them. I took them out to lunch on that Friday, and I knew I was going to tell them that God was calling me into ministry, and I had a strong feeling that they were both going to want to help me and get involved. And when I told them, I said, guys, I'm in my 60s now. I feel like I've done this much for God. It's time. And they both said something just happened in their spirit, and they both said, we want to help you. So we formed Fearless Faith Ministries. We're on Facebook under Fearless Faith, or FFM60, and we do, there's my two partners, we do your morning cup of inspiration. That's Terry on the left and Brian on the right. Great friends. And they're 3-minute messages designed to help people who maybe are new Christians or don't know a lot about Christianity. We base it on a story, a scripture, and we give the message. And it seems to be working. We have 24,000 followers. We're still small,
working.
but we're growing, you know. Yeah, I just saw in your hallway where your father said, despise not small beginnings. And so it's great to be here. And
God always likes to start with little acorns.
Yeah.
And he grows big trees out of that.
Boy, that's a great
And
analogy.
you have to realize it's in that process of growing that you get big.
Yes.
And we always want it instant.
Yeah.
You know, and be patient.
Exactly.
You know, be fruitful, multiply. It'll come.
Yeah, in God's timing. So it's been a joy to, you know, travel around the country and be able to share this message. But Hurricane of Love, God gave me this book, and I got to tell you, it was a hard book to write, Gordon. Yeah. I went from all this excitement of QVC and the big studios after I retired to sitting at my home office typing, and there were days I could hardly type a word. I would just weep, reliving all her final goodbyes and everything. But now they're tears of joy because I know where she is, and I have that hope. I will see her again. I'll have coffee with her again real soon.
All right. Well, the book is called Hurricane of Love. You can pick it up wherever books are sold. And thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Gordon. It's such a pleasure to meet you.